morning. It is Saturday. It is the start of the Premier League. It is edging a win here on Saturday, August 12th. Welcome in. Premier League begins today. It's already begun. Arsenal, they're up 2-0 at halftime. Man City won yesterday. The EFL continues with match day 2. The World Cup is down to a final few, and we are coming off a 3-1 week on our bets. Things could not get any better, but I say nay. Hold my beer, because they do. Joining us, as always, is Oxford United's greatest fan, one that has him on the ledge of Ladies Bridge in Sheffield, and a man we can all blame for not going 4-0 last week, Mr. Ian Allen from Ian OUFC. Welcome in, my friend.
What a great introduction, Matt. Great to be here once again. Once again, you have to get your little cheap shots in, don't you? But I think you need to give everybody a big apology after I was sat down last night ready to watch a Browns live stream, and you just didn't show up. What the heck happened? Don't tell me you were cowering like a coward from a tornado.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and I, we in our house, an alarm starts going off, and we end up going over to our security system, and it says, you need to leave your area right now. So we went down to the basement. We left the cats upstairs because they're cats, and, you know, we don't care about them that much.
They look after themselves anyway.
But
I'm so glad we don't have to deal with that stuff here in the UK. We just have to deal with an incessant rain. But enough about weather. We've got great fixtures starting in just under an hour's time. England's Lionesses roared into the semi-final. We'll talk about what happened to the US with its national team. But I think we should get going.
Yeah, let's dive in. Just a reminder, though, before we get to our 4 best bets, if you're looking for all of the score predictions for the EFL and around the world, make sure you subscribe to our sister channel, Edging a Win, right here on YouTube. And if you're looking for everything League One action, especially Oxford United and the Yellows, make sure you go over to Ian OUFC here on YouTube as well. But enough lollygagging. Let's get into our 4 best bets of the week. And I know we're going to go heavy here on the Premier League because the Premier League starts and it's already underway. Ian, I know you got 3 bets in the Premier League. Start us off with your first one.
Yes, Matt, every bet I'm going to do this weekend is going to be in the Premier League, and we start with a game happening just under an hour's time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Brighton and Hove Albion versus New Boys Luton Town. Yep, you know, we've already seen Man City pretty much start their defence of their title last night, and Arsenal going strong. But we're going to see how one of the New Boys gets on in one of their first game ever in the Premier League on their trip to Brighton. And whilst the Hatters are going to play with all the enthusiasm of a newly promoted side, it's hard to imagine Rob Edwards' side getting anything from this Brighton team, who were one of the best sides last season. And my bet, well, I didn't even say it. I am very sorry. I got excited. The bet I'm taking for this one is Brighton -1 on the spread. So I'm expecting a good win for Brighton here. And my bet does suggest that Luton are going to struggle in this game. And it does seem like them staying up is going to be a bit of a minor miracle as well. They are a well-organised side, but is that going to be enough? The signings that they've made have largely been EFL-based players like Mads Anderson from Barnsley and the fantastically named Marvellous Nakamba. Carlton Morris is their main goal threat, but he'll need to score more than 20 goals that he got last season. But they have also just signed Ross Barkley, who is an interesting signing from Nice. He's a guy that's never really reached his potential. But if he is motivated, then he certainly will give them an injection of quality in midfield and going forward. But this Brighton side is a fantastic team. Of all the, they're a very, very strong side. Finished 6th last season, which got them a Europa League spot. And Roberto De Zerbi's Seagulls, they're one of the most entertaining sides to watch. The way they pass the ball through the thirds to get it up the pitch, like, they are a joy to watch. Players all over the pitch, including the goalkeeper, very comfortable on the ball, not bothered about a team's press them. They just back themselves to pass their way around them, and they've done it against the best sides as well. Only Man City, Arsenal and Liverpool scored more goals than Brighton last season. They got 72 in total. They have had a turnover of players, most notably Alexis McAllister going to Liverpool and Robert Sanchez going to Chelsea. Moses Caicedo looked like he was going to Liverpool. They put in an crazy bid of like £112 million. But it looked like he's turned them down, and he ended up wants to go to Chelsea, which I find quite hilarious that he's turned Liverpool down. But, he could be on his way too. But it's still a very good Brighton side. They've made some good signings in João Pedro, Mohamed Dahoud from Dortmund as well. And I do expect Luton to do a lot of chasing shadows in this game as they try and chase Brighton around, who are going to have the lion's share of the ball. And I think Brighton are going to end up getting a big win here, as my first bet is Brighton -1 on the spread.
Why the hate on Chelsea? I mean, it's this early in the morning, and we haven't even started the season yet.
I didn't hate on Chelsea. I hated on Liverpool. I said it was hilarious. Liverpool put the bid in, and everyone just expected it to be a formality, and he kind of said, "No, I don't want to go there. I want to go to Chelsea."
Seems like a backhanded compliment to me, but I like the bet. A shout out to Real Contender in the chat saying, "Can't wait to watch some football with us. Looking forward to it as well." Big weekend here, but just a question on my end here about Brighton. They seem to have improved year on year since getting into the Premier League, but let's talk about the new boys, Luton Town, and their stadium. Don't even get me into that. They're going to have a tough season on that ridiculed stadium, but can you give a bit of love to the amazing journey that they had to go all the way from the National League to the Premier League in 10 years? Because if I'm not mistaken, Oxford for 20 years has been stuck in the same league.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not quite 20 years, but they were in the National League with Luton Town, got promoted before them, but now Luton have obviously just roared past them, snuck ahead. And but yeah, I mean, they're going to. A lot of people like to criticize it because they're not a big club that a lot of people heard of, and they look at their stadium, and it is quite an old style stadium in the middle of like a housing estate. And it's not really a traditional, what you see, beautiful Premier League ground. But that you can't take that away from the journey that they've been on. And to put it mildly, they've been to hell and back. Like they got relegated the year before the Premier League started. So they were a top flight team for many years, but got relegated just before the start of the Premier League, and then really struggled, ran into financial difficulty. In the mid-2000s, and the FA really threw the book at them for years, and it cost them relegation. And when they were in League Two, they got a minus 30-point deduction, which basically just and their points tally would have kept them up easily, but then they had to go down to the National League, and that is football purgatory, folks. So they deserve all this success. Their fans have had to deal with years of misery, and they've come back from the brink of extinction as a football club to be back in the top flight. So they absolutely should be lauding it up and deserve to be there playing against the big boys. And I think it's going to be a tough year, but if they can stay up, it will be an amazing achievement.
And just for clarification, I believe the EPL did decide to extend them some time to get that stadium ready. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you have to make some ground arrangements for TV coverage when you get into the Premier. Obviously, VAR as well to get in the Premier League, and I think Luton are in the process of maybe moving grounds at some point. But Kenilworth Road is a ground that they've had to change, and they had to sell off a lot of it to turn into corporate sponsorship, corporate hospitality, just to stay afloat, really. So, but I mean, if you're a fan of like old traditional stadiums, it's a beauty. Beauty. I love it.
I want to go there. I want to live on that stadium. It's great. It looks like it's pretty cool. But listen, let's move on to our second best bet here in the Premier League. And I think we're looking at Newcastle, and I'm going to say it, Villa.
Yeah, you got it right. You didn't say Aston. That's fantastic. Yeah, so bet number 2, lunchtime kickoff, I believe. So what time is that one your time? 12:15? 12:30 your time? 12:15?
10. I think it's 10. I think that one's still 10.
No, I think no. I've got that wrong on the script.
Okay.
It's 5:30 my time, so 12:30.
12:30 our time, yeah.
Time. So lunchtime kickoff for you guys. I'm going for goals in this one. Over 2.5 goals is my bet number 2. And two good sides, and I think both sides have strengthened in the transfer window. I think a lot of people, me included, expected Newcastle to spend really big in the transfer window, especially after qualifying for the Champions League. But it's been more about trimming the fat, really, more than anything else for Eddie Howe's side. 15 players have left, most notably Alan Saint-Maximin, who's chased the money in Saudi Arabia, and Chris Wood has gone as well. But the new additions, good players, Harvey Barnes in from Leicester, Sandro Tonali, and Tino Livramento. But this also as well, Newcastle were a good side last season, played good football under Eddie Howe. He's always going to encourage attacking football. I do think they're a little light up front with just Isak and Wilson as the only two recognised striker. So that might be one place where they look to add players in while the window is still open. Unai Emery for Aston Villa made a massive difference when he came in last season. They were relegation threatened under Steven Gerrard. Emery came in and turned them into a side that qualified for Europe. They got a Europa Conference League spot. Yuri Tielemans, Moussa Diaby will add a lot of pace and creativity to this side. And Pau Torres is a beast of a centre-back who reunites with Emery from their Villarreal days. Ollie Watkins up front. We'll be hoping that he becomes the top English striker now Harry Kane has departed. He'll want to improve on his 15 goals from last season. And Cameron Archer, interested to see how he goes as well. He was on loan at Middlesbrough last season, scored 11 goals in 20 games. I think you've got two good teams here that are going to go for it, play attacking football, and I'm expecting maybe the game of the weekend. I think it's going to be a good one. I think Newcastle will edge the game, and I think it will be over 2.5 goals.
Yeah, I like that bet. Both these teams looked in good form last season. But speaking of last season, we kind of have two sides here that are going to be playing because of last season in European competitions this season for the first time in a while. And usually that does affect in the form due to the number of extra games. You think that's going to be a factor for these teams? If I had my guess, I would say that because Newcastle, with the money that they have, I think they'll be better set up than Villa will be.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, you're right. It does affect teams. Teams who aren't used to it as well can really struggle with that addition of the European competition, playing those midweek games and then having to come back and play weekend games. It does take its toll. I actually think Newcastle might struggle more than Villa, though, here. And I know they've got the more money to spend to strengthen it, but I think that the demand of the Champions League and the pressure of the Champions League might affect Newcastle's league form. It's a competition they're not going to take lightly, and they're going to go for it and play their first team players. So that might affect the league form more than Villa, who are playing in the Europa Conference League. And let's be fair, not that strong a Conference League. Probably going to be in quite an easy group, playing a lot of minnows of European football. Unai Emery, experienced manager in Europe as well, whereas Eddie Howe's not. And I think that's a big factor too. So I think Villa will be able to rest and rotate more than Newcastle will want to do, and therefore I can see it affecting Villa less than Newcastle as the season goes on.
Yeah, it's a good point about the Conference League. In all honesty, I watched a little bit of the Conference League this past week, the first rounds of it. I kind of am going to compare that to the Leagues Cup. It's there for what it is, right?
I mean, I would say the same with the Europa League as well. There's a lot of sides that kind of are a bit. We'll see how we go in it. If we go out, it's no biggie, and then they'll start taking it seriously once they get into the knock. If they get to a quarter final, then obviously they'll start taking it more seriously. But Aston Villa won't care if they play a youth team and get knocked out in the groups, whereas Newcastle really, really want success in the Champions League.
Yeah, I love it. Newcastle Villa, it could be the match of the week. Over 2.5 goals. Ian, you got one more bet in the Premier League before we get to my best bet in the EFL, and of course, we're bringing back Ian's EFL parlay, but let's take a look at Brentford and Tottenham, and we have to talk about Tottenham this week. We'll get into that in a little bit more, but what's your best bet in the game?
Yeah, so this one's tomorrow, Sunday. It's going to be an early one, so get up early, folks, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I promise you I haven't gone mad. I promise you I am still completely sane here, but I am going for Tottenham on the money line in this one. And before you all spit your drinks out over your computers or your laptops, I am very well aware that Spurs had a terrible season last season. They were really poor, but they have brought in a new manager in Ange Postecoglou, and I think he's going to bring a breath of fresh air to this Spurs side, play a better attacking football, and I think you'll see a lot more optimism with Spurs this season. But you can't get away from the fact that Harry Kane is not going to be there. He has signed for Bayern Munich, or as you call them, Brian Munich. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Postecoglou was the Celtic manager last season, done a really good job with them, won pretty much everything, but this is much more of a test. He will play attacking football, as I already mentioned, and they'll be a lot better to watch than they were under Conte or Mourinho. You've already seen that in pre-season. James Maddison, Manor Solomon, They will add a lot of quality to this lineup. And they've still got Son, Juan Min, and Richarlison will need to step up in the absence of Kane. We know Son's going to be good for a bunch of goals this season as well. But underestimating Brentford is a mistake, and it's why this bet could come unstuck, because they are a very good team, and they normally are a very good team at home. Thomas Frank's Bees have had 2 really good seasons in the Premier League, and they're normally pretty shrewd in the transfer market. They made some Flecken and Schade, good signings from Freiburg, Nathan Collins in from Wolves as well. And look out for a young Romeo Beckham, who signed from Inter Miami's second 11. I can't imagine he's going to get much game time. But it's still the majority of the squad that's still there that did well last season. They are going to be missing Ivan Toney, who's obviously going to be suspended for this betting irregularity. What do you call it? Something he did wrong with betting. And we always encourage
infraction.
There we go.
Yeah.
We always encourage betting, so we think that should be overturned. But he's not going to be there. He's not the focal point of that team, and I think they are going to suffer as a result. And I think you're going to see a Spurs side come firing out of the blocks here, Matt. And that is why my bet number 3 is going to be Tottenham on the money line.
Listen, real quick, to talk about the betting, I have a problem with that. Just off script for a second. The NFL does the same thing. You know, these players bet on games, but then they're actually, in the English Football League, they do the same thing. They get mad at people, but they'll have the sponsor be all over the entire field. So I just have a huge problem with that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I do want to talk about Harry Kane for a second because, earlier this week, we were kind of like, is he going to go? Is he not going to go? And then, you told me this morning, he's gone. What do you think about that? And future at Tottenham, is that going to hurt them? Maybe not in this game, but for the season?
Just to do on the Tottenham bit, I think that they spoke to Postecoglou yesterday, and I think he was pretty much expecting Kane to go. Like they must have been planning for the fact that he could leave, and they're not going to have him. And I think they've been trying formations and systems without him in the team or in the squad. So it's going to be a blow. Obviously, he's been the talisman of that team for a number of years. So he's almost irreplaceable in a way. But they're going to have to find a way to get by without him because they ain't got him anymore. But Kane could come back in the future. I mean, it was an ex-Tottenham striker, Teddy Sheringham, beloved by Tottenham, went to Man United, won everything with Man United, then came back to Tottenham and they still loved him. So Kane could even come back to Spurs at some point, end his career, and he'll still be the returning hero. But I think I was surprised he went, only because I didn't think he would be interested to go abroad if it wasn't Barcelona or Real Madrid. But Bayern Munich's an amazing team, and I think that it's going to be fantastic. I think it's fascinating to see how he's going to do in the Bundesliga. You would imagine he's going to score a ton of goals. You would imagine it's almost a formality that they're going to win trophies. He could win his first trophy today if they put him on the bench. They got the German Super Cup against RB Leipzig, so it could be Harry Kane gets there and wins his first trophy within 24 hours, which would be a remarkable start. But I'm really excited to see how he goes. I've been wanting Kane to get away from Tottenham for a while. I wanted to see how he could do with a top team in the world. And make no mistake, Bayern Munich, they might win the Bundesliga every year at a canter, but they are one of the best sides in the world. And I really want to see how Harry Kane gets on there.
Yeah, it's 11 years in a row for Munich. Is that correct?
Yeah,
it's 11 years in a row. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you this right now, Ian. Harry Kane is the Johnny Manziel of English football, and they will lose this season. Harry Kane, he's a virus, and everywhere he goes, I think struggles. I don't think he's going to win a cup, and I wouldn't be surprised today if they lose.
You say everywhere he goes. He's only been one place, other than being
and
on
they lose.
Millwall.
Tottenham. We talked about this a little bit off air. Tottenham is the most underwhelming Big Six team, in my opinion, that every single season.
But yeah, I mean, it would be. There are going to be people who would find it hilarious if this was the year Bayern Munich didn't win anything, and it could happen. But Dortmund have not as strong as they were last season. Obviously, they've lost Jude Bellingham, who Bayern Munich wanted as well. But Bayern Munich seem like they've actually been trying to sign everybody, and everybody's been snubbing them. So they'll be delighted they've actually finally got a signing over the line. But I also as well, like, I want to see if this will improve Kane. I want to see if this will like kind of make him a better player and whether he can take that into England and make them better as well.
We'll see, though. We'll see. But Tottenham on the money line today over Brentford. That'll round out Ian's three best bets. Before I get into my best bet of the week, make sure you smash that like button. Let me know what you think about Ian's bets in the comments. I'm going to get to mine, though. And I am 1-0 on the season. I can just throw that out there. 1-0 on the season after a nice, easy win last week with Carlisle and both teams to score bet. This week, I'm looking all the way down at League 2, Harrogate versus Forest Green, and I am taking over 2.5 goals. Now, Harrogate's coming off a win versus Doncaster, while Forest Green was embarrassed by Salford City. Listen, things got worse as they then lost to Portsmouth in the EFL Cup midweek. Now the Green are not good away from home. We know that. They only won one match in 23 attempts last season, but they also give up a ton of goals on the road, and that's probably why they lose so much. In fact, 7 of their last 10 road matches have resulted in their opponent scoring 2+ goals. I like FRG here to rebound a little bit, at least get on the score sheet after the last 2 matches have been quite embarrassing for themselves. But I think they continue with their road struggles, give up a few goals, as well as allowing me to stay undefeated on the EFL season. And so with that, I am going to take Forest Green Harrogate over 2.5 goals. Ian, any thoughts on this one? How right am I?
Look at this, man. Look at this. I'm so proud of you, Matt. Now you're doing EFL predictions. You're pulling all of these teams out of the ether. These just weren't even teams to you last year.
I thought they were McDonald's Happy Meals.
Look, I know one team. I know one team that Forest Green didn't lose to away last season, and probably should have, and actually should have beaten us last season. But they have been a poor side they were really poor last year in League One. They've not started well this season. Defensively, they look a real mess. So I would expect Harrogate to do well, who had a really, really good win away at Doncaster. That is an impressive victory for them. Well, I thought they would struggle this season. They still might. But I think goals is a pretty safe bet in this one. Matt Taylor, ex-Oxford player's gone, starting up front now for Forest Green. I'd expect him. He's a good goal scorer at this level. Should get one today, you would think. And I think that's a pretty safe bet, especially with Forest Green being a pretty poor side defensively.
Yeah, I think so too. So that's our 4 best bets, but we do have a parlay coming up in just a bit. Before we get to that, though, there's a lot of great games around the world in football. Premier League's got a couple more games. La Liga started. League One has started. So, Ian, what are you kind of focused on? What's going to be on your television this weekend?
Yeah, so obviously the big game in the Premier League, we didn't really talk about it, is going to be Chelsea-Liverpool. That's tomorrow, I think lunchtime, just before 11:30 a.m. for you guys over there. And so interesting to see how Liverpool go. And Chelsea, obviously, new manager, Mauricio Pochettino. What tune is he going to get out of this Chelsea side were pretty poor last season. Man United Wolves play on the Monday night, or it'll be afternoon for you guys. And so let's see how Man United will get on this season. They'll be hoping that they can run Man City close to get up there and try and challenge for the Premier League, I would imagine. In La Liga, kicks off today, so you've got the big 2 over there, Athletic Bilbao versus Real Madrid, Getafe versus Barcelona, so the big 2 starting away. PSG in the French League kick off at home to Lorient tonight. And, of course, you've got the German Super Cup, which I talked about earlier, which is going to be Bayern Munich versus RB Leipzig.
Yeah, listen, I want to talk about 2 games actually that happened yesterday that I thought were surprising. Valencia beat Sevilla 2-1, and Valencia actually scored an extra time there to kick off La Liga. I thought that was a little bit surprising. I thought Sevilla is a stronger side, and they would win that one, especially at home, but they lost on the road. And also, I know we don't dive into really the Portuguese league, but Braga, Sporting Braga, they lost also at home 2-1 in some extra time. So, but just kind of talking about extra time there for a second before we get to Women's World Cup. Can you just explain why are we seeing all these games now go extremely extra time. I mean, we saw this in the EFL last week. We saw like at least 10 minutes in like a handful of games.
Yeah, so across football, they're trying to cut out time wasting, really, and that's what they're going to do. And the one way they're going to do it is by making sure that they do add on the time that is wasted during a game, because you see it in pretty much any league all up and down the world. You see one side's winning with 20 minutes to go, half an hour to go. They start rolling around, they start pretending they're injured, they start delaying the game, and it's really slow. And so you're going to get a true reflection of added on time. It's going to be pretty brutal, because even in games where there's no time wasting, like Burnley Man City yesterday, you still had 11 minutes total time added on from both halves. So there is going to be a lot of added on time, but it is done with a view to try and cut out time wasting and to try and make the game flow a little bit faster. Like you're seeing like a multi-ball system that's been introduced as well. So, ball gets kicked out once, instantly given back so they can start the game quicker. It's a little bit like how they've introduced that pitch clock, into MLB just to try and speed the game. And I think in the long run, it's going to be pretty good. You just obviously they've got to be consistent with it and not just back down if the players start moaning and complaining.
Yeah, and I'm here for that. Years ago, I talked about this, of how I hate that sometimes you'll look up and you'll be like, how's there only 2 minutes? A guy was on the ground for like 7. I think from a betting perspective, though, Ian, it's fantastic. I mean, The chance if you're on an over to hit I had the Braga game over 2.5 yesterday. There was 13 minutes of extra time, and there ended up being one in the 8th minute of extra time. So I think from a betting perspective, it's going to really help us bettors. To transition... Go ahead. Did you have something?
So, I was just going to say from a betting perspective and also from a spectator perspective as well. You used to show statistics of like you'd go and watch a 90-minute game, and the ball was only in play for like 50 minutes. So you've got like 40 minutes where the ball's not even being touched. And so hopefully that'll improve all of that. And hopefully in the long run, you just get a more faster paced game.
Yeah. Also, from a spectator perspective, I heard something last week while I was watching the West Brom game. They mentioned something about like now spectators in the stadium can see the extra time. Is that new?
How do you mean? So I don't know.
So I guess like last year, or just the clock in the stadium would stop at 90 minutes and nobody would know. Okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? But now it actually will count down the seconds.
I think. I mean, they should do that. I was surprised they haven't been doing that anyway.
Yeah.
But they should definitely be doing that. And also as well, remember that these things, if you get put up 10 minutes, that's a minimum of 10 minutes. So don't be surprised if the game still goes beyond that.
Yeah, true. All right, hey, listen, we got to talk about Oxford. But before we get to Oxford and your EFL parlay, I do want to touch real quick on the Women's World Cup and Leagues Cup. So Women's World Cup, the final 4 are set. We have Spain, Sweden facing off in one semifinal. We have Australia and England now, who nicked a win over Colombia.
Edged a win.
Final thoughts on the semifinals? Who do you think's the best one out of those 4?
Yeah, well, I mean, Spain have looked really good so far. I mean, for me, they've looked the best side, and the way they move the ball better than all the other teams, and they look the team to beat. Sweden, full of confidence after knocking out the US women's team. They took that confidence into the game against Japan. They held on a little bit, but I think a lot of people were kind of expecting Japan to win that, so that was another big victory for the Swedes. Australia, home nation, getting a lot of support and backing from the crowd. Tight game against France today, but they kind of edged it out in the penalty shootout. And quite frankly, England have been really poor and are just finding a way to win, which is admirable in itself, but haven't really been tested against an elite side in this tournament. Australia will be a hard game. And I wouldn't be shocked if I think you might even see a Spain-Australia final here.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me. I do think Spain, with the eye test, has looked the best at the moment. I do think, honestly, my pick, I think there's a lot of value in taking England. I think they've been playing down to their opponents.
They're going to be favourites, though, aren't they? That's the trouble. I don't think the value is with England, because they're going to be favourites for the tournament.
But are they still? That's the problem I have with some books sometimes is like you should be eye testing. Like the United States, and they did the same with the United States. Like even when the United States got through the group stage, they were still the favorites to win the tournament, which I think's a little, so I guess maybe the value's really on Sweden or Spain at this moment because one of them's going to come through.
But also as well, remember bookies have to follow the money a little bit, don't they? If someone comes in and lumps loads of money on, if they put USA in at an attractive price and people start lumping money, that they risk losing a ton. So then they have to slash those odds. So it'll be the same with England.
That's true, but the USA aren't in anymore, and just to close the book on them, what just awful. I mean, all of these women in the United States, Rapinoe, Morgan, Smith, just choke artists. Absolute choke artists. I mean, what are you doing? Rapinoe had a chance to win that game on penalty and PKs, and they literally just gave away every opportunity. They had two. They were up one PK at one point, then it got level again. Then they had a chance to win it on the last one. Then it went level again. I mean, just absolute choke artists.
Yeah, and I think that the form of Alex Morgan really affected the team as well. She was really poor in this tournament, and she had a chance to win it with a header. It was a good save by the goalkeeper, but she's got to be scoring that. Free header from 8 yards out. You've got to be putting that away.
Yeah. All right, enough about the Women's World Cup. We'll see how the semifinals play out. I do want to talk about the Leagues Cup. You know I'm not a big fan of the tournament itself as it's played out. However, there's kind of a big name in the tournament as Messi started his MLS career. And, a part of me, the conspiracy part of me, thinks that, like, the MLS months ago when they came up with this Leagues Cup already knew Messi was going to play for the MLS, and they're like, you know what, this is going to be fantastic. We'll come up with some stupid tournament. We'll have Messi just go through every game, scoring goal after goal, winning and hoisting his first ever MLSL tournament cup, and he'll ride off into the sunset for years in the MSL, and our brand will just become that much bigger because all he's done is score goals, Ian.
I know, it does seem like that, doesn't it? The sponsors and all that must be delighted with this, because otherwise this tournament is a big kind of wet fart, really, isn't it? Like, it's just completely like no one really cares about it, and but Messi's kept everyone's interest in it, really, and it looks like he's going to get all the way through. And do you know what? He's pretty good, isn't he? He's pretty good.
He is pretty good.
That Messi lad.
He is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. He's very good. I'm impressed. How easily he scores. I will say this. I'm pretty sure after last night there are no more Mexican teams left in this tournament.
One, I think.
Oh, did they win?
I think a team knocked out LAFC.
Oh, they came back because they were down 2-0.
Yeah, they came back 1-3-2.
Oh, I went to bed because it was like after midnight, but. Wow, 3-2. Okay, so that's Monterrey, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, but
Nashville are a decent side. Nashville, they might be other, but it does feel like Inter Miami have got their name on this trophy.
Oh, for sure. And even did you? I don't know if you caught the scoreline when they played Dallas. They were down big, like 4-2 late, and they ended up winning 5-4. So I mean, it's just. I'm telling you, MLS is making it's like, and I hate to compare him to LeBron James because I think LeBron James is not the greatest ever, but it looks like Messi. They're just handing here's the trophy, make our brand better. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Yeah. So, all right, enough about Leagues Cup. We've already gone 9 minutes over talking about how long we should have. Listen, I want to talk about the your EFL parlay. We're bringing it back. We didn't have it last week. But we're bringing it back, and explain what this is.
It's where I make a fool of myself, Matthew.
Yes.
Where I make a fool of myself.
Love it.
Look, we parlays are usually a good sure way to lose your money, and I know, Matt, you never kind of back parlays, but it's just for fun. Throw $1 on it, whatever, throw a pound UK money or whatever. Don't throw much money on it. I've just picked 4 teams, one from the Premier League, one from the Championship, one from League One, one from League Two, and we're just going to see if we can get a nice little win here. I didn't hit it once last season, so let's see if I can start it this season with a bang. So Premier League, I'm going for Everton over Fulham. I don't know why. I just think they might win at home. Cardiff versus QPR in the Championship. QPR have been dreadful. Cardiff pretty good in their opening day game. Unlucky with a late draw in that one. Wigan versus Northampton. Get your Wigan kebabs out, folks. Matt will talk all about that in his EFL League One predictions, so go check that out. Northampton, I think they might struggle in this one. Wigan look pretty good in their opening day win over Derby. And in League Two, going for Bradford over Colchester. Although Bradford love to kind of flatter to deceive, I feel that they should get first home game of the season. I'm expecting them to get a nice win there.
Yeah, I love it, actually. Everton, I would agree. I think it's going to be high scoring. I took a personal bet on Everton Fulham over 2.5 goals. I think that's going to be a good game to watch, actually. Cardiff, I couldn't agree more. Gareth Ainsworth and that QPR team, just like, what is going on and why did he ever leave Wickham? Like, that's my question. And I would say
might be back there in a couple of months.
Yeah, right. Wigan, don't get me started. I'm hoping they lose that match. But I like the EFL parlay. Again, the odds for that are plus 13.50. So $1 would you $13.50. So again, don't throw too much money on that. It's you're going to lose money in the long run with parlays. Before we close out, though, and go watch some Match Day 2 football in the EFL and the opening day of the Premier League, there's a team that I think we need to discuss that's been pretty bad, and it's finally not the Cleveland Browns. It is the Oxford United.
Although they are bad, but it is.
Let's clarify, they are also bad.
We're cursed and doomed to support bad teams, and mine is Oxford United. And all the hope and optimism of a new season fluttered away after 30 minutes when we were 2-0 down to Cambridge, the side that we expected to beat. But Cambridge fully deserved it, played with more heart, played with more energy, more commitment, and deserved the win. Oxford backed that up. Bristol City was always going to be a tough game, but they got absolutely battered, 5-1. So we need a response, we need a reaction. If they don't win today against Carlisle, your much loved Carlisle, Matt, I'm going to be close to hitting the panic button even after game 2. So check out my review video later. You may see my descent to madness come even closer, as I'm probably going to be, if we lose, I'm probably going to be breathing into a brown bag, hyperventilating for the first 10 minutes.
Listen, the only reason I actually subscribe to your channel is to watch you in your misery after the games. I will say, though, Carlisle is one of, that was my League 2 team that I rooted for. They're finally up there in League 1. I do think they're going to struggle. They had a hard time last week. They were lucky to even get a draw against, I think,
good
a worse... Huh?
Good goal. I mean, I know you probably didn't see it, but Owen Moxon, a guy we highlighted as their key man, scored a really good free kick.
He did, but, that was very late. I think it was 90 plus or somewhere in the 80th. It was pretty late, but... I think Oxford's a better team this week that they're going to be facing, and it's the Yellows are at home, right? Correct?
We are indeed.
Yeah, so I think after your loss against Bristol City 5-1, your loss last weekend, I think it's going to be pretty bad. Wickham's going to have not a great chance today either. I forgot who they play, but it's not going to be good.
Yeah, they play.
I forgot who they play, too. They play...
Fill time. I'm looking quickly.
I got it. Lincoln City.
There we go.
Lincoln City.
Yeah, that will be a tough one.
And that's one of the best logos, and that's all I base my bets on. All right, that's enough for Edging a Win this week. Appreciate y'all stopping by. Hit that like button. Go subscribe to E&O UFC. Subscribe to our sister channel, Edging a Win, which is all just soccer bets. And we will see you in 2 weeks. As we are off next week because Mr. Ian Allen has a wedding anniversary to celebrate. He is going to the Wendy's right down the street on the corner for his wedding anniversary. He told me he's going to get a Whopper and she's allowed to get a small fry. That's it for us here on Edging a Win. Have a great day and we will see you next time.